When I was running for the school board, just to even question how certain things were being taught, I was attacked because I was questioning why certain things were being taught. I remember one night going to curriculum night, and the teacher was going over what she was going to, what they were going to cover throughout the year. And she went on to the section where she said that they were going to talk about the genocides that had taken place over the years. And she said, we're going to speak about the Holocaust. We're also going to discuss Khmer Rouge. So I asked her, I said, excuse me, I said, what about the Rwandan genocide? And she was very uncomfortable when I posed that question. So I said to the teacher, I said, I have a lot of resources. If you'd like, I can share them with you. Of course, when I got home, I wrote up an email and I sent her a bunch of links to tell her about Rwanda. And eventually I asked my daughter, I said, Lila, did your teacher ever talk about Rwanda? And she said, no. I said, oh, okay. So I reached out to her and I asked, I said, is there a particular reason why you chose not to speak about Rwanda? She said, oh no, it wasn't that I didn't want to, it's just that, I had already had everything planned out. And I said, well, especially since it's the most recent one that has been a confirmed genocide, I think you should have spoken about it. Mainly because of a lot of the conversations that my daughter told me you guys are having at school. And she wanted to know what that was. And I said, well, my daughter has been coming home telling me about white supremacy and white privilege. And I explained to her that I teach my children that anyone can do evil acts. Anyone, regardless of their color. At one point, my son overheard me having a conversation with my daughter about what was being taught. And he said, oh yeah, Mommy, they teach us that also at the high school. When it came to what took place in Rwanda, the people that were committing the genocide all had black skin. For it to be taught that you can't judge people based on who they are and what they do to you, rather than generalizing, I think that that's very ignorant. If you've never left your immediate environment, you oftentimes might prejudge others or have these, preconceived notions of what someone is like because you've never encountered them. And I think even with the issues that we're having surrounding race and discrimination, it has to do with the fact that many people don't know each other.
How many languages do you speak?
3.5. I say half because I speak more Spanglish. So I can understand Spanish, but I learned mainly from having Puerto Rican and Dominican friends when I lived in New York City. For years, I lived in New York, I traveled. My cousins that we often stayed with when we were in France are my father, one of his younger sisters. They see race differently in France than they do in the United States. And they also see race differently in Africa than they do here. In the United States, there's just this blanket label of black, whereas in Europe, it's not that way. Because the way that we see race in the United States is, I don't know if you're familiar with the one-drop rule, whereas like if you have one drop of African ancestry, you're considered to be black, regardless of what you might look like. And when I tried to explain that to my cousins in France, they were like, what? Are you serious? That's not normal. When I began to say that I was proud to be both Congolese and American, when I would speak about my American side, I would speak about the accomplishments of our ancestors. I wouldn't focus on only the the aspect of slavery, I would focus on, in spite of, this is what we were able to do. In spite of hard times, slavery, segregation, all of these things that happened, we're still here. We have to talk about the bad, but we have to talk about the good. We have to say, you know what? This is what happened. This was the result. If it's a negative result, what are we going to do to turn that around? We're not going to continue to dwell on, okay, you did this, you did this, you did this. Okay, now what? Now what? Race in this country, just like slavery, is not black and white. It's so convoluted. There was so much going on. I always question someone who is a spiritual leader who will say that all one group of people are bad. Because then I question, well, aren't we all spiritual beings on a journey? All of us? The envelope doesn't mean anything because eventually it's going to go away. It's what's inside that matters. And that's what we need to teach children. Sadly, we have to teach adults that too, but it's what's inside.